One of my favorite things on a power chair is the spring-loaded forks. You would not believe the difference it makes hitting bumps and how it smooths out the ride by having spring-loaded forks.
We use what's called active track suspension, and particularly on the 6000Z, we have ATX, where our front caster is actually linked with our drive wheel. So as the front caster goes up or hits an obstacle and gets lifted, the drive wheel actually goes down. That increases stability and traction for the end user. So we're trying to prevent them from getting stuck anywhere and actually have a smoother ride.
What we call obstacle climb, or a step transition that it can climb, is 3 inches. That's what it's rated for. It would probably do more, but that's what we rate them at.
The chairs are designed to be able to climb a 3-inch curb. The front-wheel drive version has forward stabilizers on it with a little wheel. Those can be adjusted up and down in height. It also has suspension on that, so that if you do hit, say, a 3-inch curb, it's going to be able to raise up to let that drive tire bite and grip and climb up and over the obstacle. A rear-wheel drive is going to have, it's a much bumpier ride going over obstacles like that, because that 8-inch wheel on most, some have even a smaller than 8-inch wheel. It's a bigger bump the smaller the wheel is. Fortunately for us on the 350, it's a 9-inch wheel, so it rolls up and over the obstacles a little bit easier.
It has what we call sure step, and sure step is the ability for the front casters to climb up and to climb down. The TDX can climb up to a 3-inch obstacle from a dead stop. That's where the sure step comes in, and it lifts the front casters as it feels an obstacle. In this chair, the entire TDX series will climb a 3-inch obstacle.
Many of our chairs will do a 4-inch curb. The faster we make the chair go, the less torque you have, so the height of the curb that you can climb is reduced.
It can go over a 4-inch curb, we always say curb, but it could be a 4-inch obstacle of any sort, including if it's a small branch or anything like that.
Most of my friends have steps to their houses that are over 3 inches high. So it's important to me that I pick a power chair that will allow me to pop back in a wheelie, so to speak, and with assistance get up over a step more than 3 inches high.
I like to open the door with my chair, so how much torque does the chair have? And I also like to move furniture.
But we do have a feature in our electronics that's referred to as hill and obstacle compensation. And what that allows us to do is that allows us to program in more torque at the slower speeds. And so if you need to go up a ramp or a curb cut or something like that in a slower speed, it'll deliver more power to the motors.
The motors that we're using actually are, because they're 4-pole motors, we've tested it at up to 20 degrees of incline, and it pulls a 300-pound user up to 20-degree slope quite well.
One of the people who have bought it pretty recently, she bought it because she had a really steep driveway and just found that the torque in our chair was able to get it up fairly easily. So seems to do pretty well in inclines.
Driving through water is always not recommended. The official answer is keep the chair as dry as possible. That said, many people drive through puddles without a problem. Now, if you drove it into a swimming pool, it probably wouldn't work, but driving through up to a 2 or 3 inch puddle is not a problem.
Both the 300 and 350 have roughly a 2 3/4 or 3-inch ground clearance. We don't recommend that people plow through puddles, but if you need to, wade your way through a 3-inch puddle, that's not an issue for us. Electronics are shrouded. They've got the shroud over the top. They're protected from underneath. But again, if you hit a puddle, you need to respect the equipment, slow it down a little bit so you aren't creating a wave that's going to wash up into your electronics.
In puddles, it does actually pretty well. We also have an option that someone can get splash guards if they're in puddles a lot.
Sand, the chair will handle a dirt road. Sand, like going to the beach, we would not recommend that.
Well, snow's a difficult one because of the you're just going to sink typically, and also the moisture, the wetness getting in to places that maybe it probably shouldn't be. Sand, kind of similar to snow, taking away the moisture. It can get into crevices and places inside the motors that's not too friendly for any power mobility device. And again, it becomes an issue on depth. The bigger the tire, the easier it's going to be. But due to the weight of these things, they don't perform typically the best in a sand environment.
On sand and snow, it also does really well. And one of the reasons is not only because it has pretty big tires, but it also does well because it's a pretty light chair compared to some of the others at 250 pounds. Even freewheeling it, it's pretty easy for someone like me to just push it when the motors are disengaged.
Components are resistant to water and moisture. So you can run out in the rain, you can use it outdoors, snow, inclement weather. The chair will be just fine. It does not take submersion, of course, but it does do well in outdoor conditions.
Ground clearance on this chair is about 3.5 inches. And because it's using knobby tires on the drive wheels, this chair does quite well outdoors. The suspension allows it to suck up all the bumps and maintain traction as it goes through all of those varying terrain.
The chair is designed, like I said, to go through things like sand, snow, mud, and it can go to the beach. Typically, it's not going to get stuck. Now, our other chair, our four-wheel drive wheelchair, that one really is almost impossible to get stuck. The X5 can get stuck. It just depends. I mean, on a really, really soft beach, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of play around and not get it stuck. However, I mean, it's gonna be difficult to get it stuck. So if you wanted to go to the beach and just go down the beach, wouldn't be a problem. There are some kinds of sand, especially in Florida. We've had some people that used to surf before their injury tell us that in certain really, really soft sands, it's a little more difficult. And things like snow, as long as it keeps getting traction, and once again, you may have to alter the pressure in the tires. You know, we always recommend between 3 and 5, but the softer the terrain, sometimes the lower the tires need to be. So it's not going to damage the tires or the rims to do that, but it'll get you through some of those really soft terrains.
I've been through water about this deep. I've been, on the beach. I try to stay away from the salt water, but I've been through rivers and no problems. You know, when I get home from the beach, I hose the chair down, hose all the salt off.
For details about 8 of the top power wheelchairs on the market today, tune in to the Power Wheelchair Comparison web series. Transportation provided by the Braun Entervan. www.braunability.com. Brought to you by the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation and Gold Pictures. Filmed on location at Universal Studios, California.